Everyone. Today is Monday, March 8th, 2021. This is the Westwood Select Board. It is 5 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 emergency order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this Select Board meeting will be conducted via remote participation by the board. This meeting is being live streamed by the Westwood Media Center. It will be recorded and it will be available for later viewing. Anyone wishing to participate in the meeting may do so using the functionality of Zoom. Moving right along, I have a very brief chair's update about the Neponset Valley Transportation Survey. Neponset Valley communities are working with the Neponset Valley Transportation Management Association, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and the Suburban Mobility Working Group to determine how to make transportation in our area better better than pre-COVID, especially along routes 1 and 1A. The Neponset Valley communities include Canton, Dedham, Foxborough, Norfolk, Norwood, Sharon, Walpole, Westwood, and Rentham. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council is looking for resident feedback. A survey link has been supplied to the town and will be posted to the main page of Westwood's website. Submitted survey responses will be used to help identify the transportation needs for post-COVID commuters. It should be noted comments are anonymous and the survey will take approximately 5 minutes to complete. This is actually really interesting because I received an invitation the other day for a similar exercise that's occurring from the Route 109 VFW Parkway intersection down Route 1 towards Dedham. So it seems that this is all part of a larger effort. I had responded to a survey about the 109 VFW Parkway intersection because I drive that way every day. So this is interesting. I hope people will take the time to participate.
And where do they find the connection for this?
I'm going to post it to the town website tomorrow or today.
Great.
And I'll remind, it's open for how long, Trish? Does it say? It doesn't say.
It doesn't.
But we have a meeting again on the 29th, and we should remind everybody again.
Let me see if I can find some information on that.
Because if we could keep my commute the way it's been, that would be perfect. All right. And joining us this evening is our newly sworn-in sheriff, Mr. Patrick Mcdermott. Welcome, Patrick.
I unmute here. Thank you for having me tonight. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I have a very brief bio piece that I'm happy to read, unless you want to just jump into your own introduction.
I can give it a wing. I think I've done it enough times. I'll try to keep it brief. Sometimes the resume can go on and on forever. I'll give you the highlights, I guess.
Thank you. All yours.
So I appreciate the opportunity to come in front of the select board tonight. Great to see some familiar faces, obviously, tonight online here. So basically, my background is this: I'm from the city of Quincy. I actually got my start in civics by being a local civic association president, and worked at the State House, and then became a municipal official here in the city of Quincy by serving 3 terms on the city council back in. It's odd to say too. I served back in the 90s. I mean, it just seems bizarre, that was so many years ago. But I served from 96 to 2002 on the Quincy City Council. At which point, at the time I became an attorney. So I've been an attorney for 20 years, and the last 18 years prior to becoming sheriff, I served as your register of probate for Norfolk County, serving as the clerk magistrate over at the probate and family court. So I've done that, and then decided a couple of years back that I was not probably going to be moving into a 4th term. And coincidentally, at the time, Sheriff Bellotti was at the same crossroads about moving on to a different opportunity. And so, with my family and my friends and supporters, I took a look at the position to see if it was a good fit. And I believed I had something to offer to the Norfolk County Sheriff's Office. And so we began that long 2.5-year campaign to go on that long job interview, as I say, to the people in Norfolk County. And I was blessed to get the the vote, both in the primary and then in the final election, and which leads us here tonight. So I've made it a commitment to reach out to the towns to make sure that that we work with the local boards of select boards as well as the local towns to really get the message across and to hear from you as to what your expectations might be for the sheriff's office. And I ran on a very basic, but I thought pretty unique principle of prevention, intervention, education, and hope. And at the Norfolk County Correctional Facility, I wanted to talk to people more about, not necessarily just about the jail itself, and that's our primary role, is the care and custody of the male inmate population, which is we have an average count of about 350 detainees at any given moment. And that's only the one portion. What I think is the most important thing, and the most important thing that we do in the sheriff's office, is actually the rehabilitation of those individuals. The people that are serving time at the House of Correction largely are those that have been convicted in the district courts and in the Superior Court, but have to be serving up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction. Most of the crimes that the men are serving for are lesser offenses. We're not detaining higher crimes that you see on Law and Order, the big criminals. These are mostly mental health issues, mostly addiction issues that lead to criminal behavior, is what comes down to it. So we're focusing. We're finding that I just had a meeting this afternoon with our mental health clinician, and a lot of the folks that are with our facility have suffered mental health issues in the past. And, that leads into addiction issues, which leads to criminal behavior. So our goal is to actually create an environment where those individuals can actually re-enter the town of Westwood or the city of Quincy much better off than they came to us in the first place. And we do that with a philosophy of day one, we start their re-entry opportunities. We just started last week with our programs coming back in since COVID. So we're starting to really get a robust programming in place again to get our educational programs up and running. So those that don't have their high school degree can get a GED program. Those that are interested in higher learning, we're going to be partnering up with local community colleges. We're going to have active vocational training with our labor unions. We're hoping to put forward 2 programs, which I think are going to be very unique. One is an automotive program. We have a full garage at the jail. We have a fleet of vehicles that constantly need oil changes and upgrades. So we want to try to have a vocational training on automotive repair. We have a beautiful kitchen well, I wouldn't say it's beautiful, but it's a very robust kitchen at the facility. We do all the cooking for the inmates in-house. We don't have any external vendors coming in. But what we can do is use that facility better by putting a culinary arts program in place. So we're going to be doing that. The spring weather is going to come up. I'm hoping to bring back a horticultural specialist to actually teach our inmates about landscaping, to give them another. So all these programs, this is what we do as soon as the folks are there. I hate idle time, and I hate when I've walked around. Under COVID, the programming went down, but we're getting that back into place. So that's what we have going on at the facility, and that's the important part. But it's what we do outside into the community that's important too. I've been making the rounds to all of the councils on aging to really reach out to our senior populations, to talk to them about crime prevention. Not going in an area where scams can affect them. We talk about some programs at the sheriff's office, and I don't take credit for any of this stuff because luckily I've inherited some great things from the prior administrations. But Sheriff Bellotti put a very great partnership in place with local law enforcement and the Council on Aging. It's called the Triad program. And we're looking to recreate that and kind of revitalize it in a post-COVID era where we get back out to the communities, have our public safety meetings, picnics with the seniors, working with folks to sign them up to the Are You OK program, which is a daily program that reaches out to seniors that might be living shut-ins, living by themselves, that don't have access to friends and family. Those folks that might be of concern, we call on a daily basis as kind of a wellness check. And luckily, through a partnership with Fallon Ambulance, if in fact that senior might not be responsive to our calls, We make sure that the local first responders are contacted, as well as family members, to check on their loved ones. And since I've been in office, we've had 2 saves already. And that program saves lives. We need more seniors to take advantage of it. Not just seniors too, but those folks that might have other special needs that would require our services as well. We're there to be a resource for the towns. And so we're going to get all this information back up and running as soon as possible. But the key at the end of the day, you know, as I campaigned, I said, I really want to focus on public safety. And I see that the chief is on this call today. And it's great to know that the town of Westwood has a fantastic police department. There's a great partnership that we have with the town of Westwood. We want to make sure that that triad program rings true, that the people in the town of Westwood feel safe and they know that their public safety officials are looking out for their best interests. So I get to play a part in that, and I'm very excited to do so on behalf of your town. And I expect that we're going to have a great relationship going forward. And I'm here mostly just to reintroduce myself a little bit, as well as to listen, answer questions, and hopefully start the conversation that will hopefully lead us to an increasingly more safe community for the town of Westwood and the county of Norfolk. So appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
No, I think it's great. We agree with you. We do. Chief Silva does a great job for us, and we're very fortunate. I think the more you can do around vocational training, the better we all are.
Absolutely.
A
Jobs,
job,
housing, healthcare. It really comes down to the basics.
yeah,
That's what these men need, and then we're going to make sure that they get it.
a job combats so much. And I guess I didn't realize, so that structure on 128, when I'm getting on to 128, that has 350 people serving time in there? And that's
Yes.
that one building. And how many staff are on at any given time?
So on any given shift, we're probably about 40 staff
Wow.
members, and that includes security, administration, as well as programs. You know, and actually that count is low right now. We're actually at our lowest count that we've been in quite some time. And basically due to COVID and due to, you know, for good things that have happened over the course of time with COVID and the Supreme Judicial Court putting forth some new standards as to who could be released early or released under probation or some strict guidelines. So our inmate population is low. The trial courts haven't been sending us a lot of people that are getting convicted because they haven't had trials. And so the sad thing is what we found, and I don't particularly like this, is the amount of time that people are being held at the facility waiting trial. And that's what's going on right now. We've got a lot of folks that are waiting for both the district court, the Superior Court, as well as the federal detainees. So that's a problem right now that the trial court really needs to work on to try to get more people's access to justice issues resolved, and hopefully one way or another move them through the system more efficiently. So.
No, that's great, Sheriff. And I always appreciated Sheriff Bellotti used to come and see us every other year, I think. And so we hope you'll continue the tradition. Nancy,
is the town of Westwood involved in the county retirement system?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
Bellotti's handling your checkbook. So good luck with that. Okay.
If you can get us out of that OPEB liability,
We'll be indebted. Well, Pat, it's nice to see you again. Congratulations on your victory. And it sounds like you've hit the ground running. I was going to ask you how the transition is, but
I got to give a shout out to my predecessor and a Westwood resident, Jerry Mcdermott, who I got to give him a lot of credit. He congratulated me right the day of the election, and we immediately got onto a transition, and it was as seamless as it could be. They were very welcoming, the administration, and they put together a very easy transition. We were able to bring our people in. And so Sheriff Jerry Mcdermott, as well as the superintendent and the staff, they were great. So we've hit the ground running. We have our team in place, and now it's a matter of hoping. My number one goal is reopening the programs, and we were really excited to bring the staff back last week for the first time. And so now we're going to hit the ground running with that.
So are you seeing the end in sight, so to speak, with COVID in terms of the impact on the population you have, and starting to plan again for when situation is safer for everybody?
Yeah, we experienced it like literally within the first couple of weeks on the watch. We had an outbreak of COVID at the jail, and the vaccine had just started coming online. So we've had to experience. We put together. We built upon the COVID response plan that was in position. We ended up in a lockdown for the first time in a while. We had a big spike in 3 of our housing units. So we had to really manage that accordingly. And fortunately, only one inmate ended up being hospitalized. And fortunately, that wasn't for any long period of time. But we've actually done very well with the vaccinations. We're at, I think, 50% of the inmate population has been vaccinated. They've all been offered it, but it's now a matter of educating all of our inmate population the value of having the vaccination. They're a little bit suspect on the vaccination. Next week, we're bringing in a whole team of medical professionals to talk one-on-one with the inmates to show them that this is safe. This is an effective means to prevent the virus from spreading. And fortunately, our staff, I think we're at 80%, if not a little bit more, vaccinated. So we should have, I think we've turned the corner in Norfolk. I don't expect to have any further problems necessarily. And like anything else, we're hopefully putting healthy people back into the communities from whence they came.
Well, good luck to you as you proceed forward with that. And I share appreciation for your coming before us. As you know, I'm leaving the board soon, so I won't be here when you come back, but I'll be very interested in watch the success you have with in your new role as sheriff.
Thanks. And thank you for your service, Nancy. We know where to find you.
Yeah, thank you. You do.
Thanks a lot, Sheriff. We really appreciate it.
Great. Where's Walsh tonight? What the heck? Did he blow off the meeting?
Well, we'll leave it at that. Have a good night, Sheriff.
Well, I was just wondering, John, does Jeff want to say anything? Because he's here with us, and I know that partnership is very important.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just always a pleasure to be able to work with the sheriff's office on behalf of residents. We've historically always had a good relationship, and there was never any doubt that was going to continue. The sheriff reached out, all of us at the Norfolk County Chiefs, and made himself and his staff available. It really does help us a lot in what we do, particularly, although as the sheriff mentioned, the census has been low. The sheriff's office maintains what we call a regional lockup. And so when people are arrested, they come to the police station and we often hold them. But, frankly, there's a cost associated with that. And just in terms of the overall care, custody, and transportation of prisoners, the sheriff's office is better situated to do that than we. So we do it when we need to. But the prior administrations have always been very helpful in trying to make the facility available to us, sometimes on a weekend or when we have somebody who will be held for a long time. And they also have a number of community programs. The sheriff mentioned the Triad program with the seniors. So it's very valuable. It's the type of thing that the residents don't necessarily see, which is okay. And they don't hear about it, and that's okay too. But it does provide a substantial value added to public safety in the county and in the town. So I certainly appreciate the sheriff coming on here and letting the public know that, and look forward to working with him.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. We'll see you soon.
All right. Have a good meeting.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Nice to see you, Pat.
Pleasure, Pat.
Oh, actually, he's joined now.
Look who joined. All right. Tell him I said hello, too.
Okay, we're moving on to the Brigham Health, Mass General Brigham Westwood update. And Nora, who do we have with us? Okay. Hi, Cindy. I see you.
Hi, John.
Why don't you introduce your team, Cindy? Because I can't tell who's on.
Okay, thanks. And I'm happy to share my screen if that's easiest.
Yes.
Tish, is that okay? I know you had given me the option.
Yes, that's fine. If you want to
Okay.
share.
All right, let me just pull that up. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
So share, and let me just make sure I see everybody. I'm so sorry. I know I should know how to do this by now, right?
We're all learning.
Okay, you're very kind. So we are joined, I'm Cindy Peterson. I am the Vice President for Regional Ambulatory Operations and Business Development for Brigham Health. And I am joined by John Fernandez and Joy Clark. John Fernandez, do you want to just introduce yourself? And I know we'll talk in a few minutes when we do the updates.
Thanks for having us. Yep, John Fernandez. I'm president of Mass General Brigham Integrated Care. I look forward to answering your questions and talking to you tonight.
Thanks, John.
Welcome.
Joy, can you introduce yourself?
You bet. Joy Clark from Leggett McCall. I'll be the project manager for the design and construction of the building. And thank you again for having us.
Great.
Thank
I don't
you.
think I
Thanks
missed
for
it.
being here.
All right, should I jump in, John?
Yes, that would be perfect.
All righty. So, and as Joy and John both said, thank you very much for inviting us to give you an update. Joy will give a little bit more background on the building itself. What we want to do is we've gone through introductions. John and I wanted to just provide a couple of updates since last spring when everything shut down due to COVID, including all of our planning, as you probably knew. So now we're delighted to be back on track. The building itself has transferred ownership. It's still within the family. So the Brigham sold the building to Mass General Brigham Integrated Care, formerly known as Partners Ambulatory Care. And as John Fernandez already mentioned, he's the president of both Mass Ioneer as well as Mass General Brigham Integrated Care. John, do you want to give just a brief overview and then I can come back to the agenda?
Sure, Cindy, thank you. So as part of the Mass General Brigham, for some of you formerly known as Partners Healthcare, we decided probably a couple of years ago to make a big effort in a variety of communities, including Westwood, to expand our access to make it easier for patients to get to services in their communities and also make it a lower cost. So basically not hospital-based, which ends up costing the health system and insurers more money. So we formed Mass General Brigham Eye Care, and in late January, we submitted a DON, which is Designation of Need, to the state of Massachusetts, which is required when you have devices such as ambulatory surgery, MRI, and CT, which are parts of what we will be adding to the program here in Westwood. The other two towns were Westboro and Woburn, and the answer is no. You did not have to have a W in front of your name to be one of the towns. We are also in construction for a similar site up in Salem, New Hampshire, which is underway. So we're excited about expanding in Westwood, and that's where in the DON process, we've just gotten started. We filed it. Public hearings will be coming up shortly. As well as we have to go in front of the Public Health Council. So it's a 4 to 6 month process that we have to get through before we can get started. We're eager to get going, but you have to go through that process, and be glad to answer any questions later on. Cindy?
Great, thanks, John. And the only other piece I wanted to just mention in terms of updates, the building has new ownership, but the services will continue managed through the Brigham for the foreseeable future. So they'll continue to roll up to me, and we'll have that continuity of operation.
Yeah, make no mistake, Cindy's in charge, not me.
And so then I'll go through the current operation. I'll just kind of hit the high points for you all. I'll do it in 3 minutes or so. And then I'll turn it over to Joy Clark. So she'll give you the picture of future expansion. And I wanted to thank Joy because she's on vacation this week. She's up in Maine and she's joining us anyway. So thank you again, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
So just as a reminder, when we opened the building back in October of 2018, we opened with lots of different services. Primary care, behavioral health, dermatology, OBGYN, and orthopedics are all anchor providers. So they're there. Now they're there 5 days a week. Maybe in the beginning they weren't there 5 days a week, but that's really important for our community and our patients to be able to access that level of care easily. It means that we have good access with all of those services. And then we have a multi-specialty clinic that at the time had cardiology, endocrine, gastro, and neurology. Since then, we've added all of these services to that same multi-specialty clinic. And then we have minor imaging, ultrasound, mammography, and x-ray. And then we have phlebotomy as well. So those things continue. But we have just nicely grown We filled out the building as best we can. We still have a little bit of capacity in our multi-specialty clinic, but we've been open now for several years, and we're a 2-story building with lots of things going on in it. So we're eager to expand. I wanted to just, thank all of you for all of your support. And I wanted to kind of validate that by just sharing some of the comments that our patients have sent to us. And we use the Press Ganey patient satisfaction tool. That's what this all came from. So it's an objective third party that reaches out to our patients, and our patients can provide their input through Press Ganey. So I don't have to read all of these, but the themes are: we're easy to get to using commuter rail. The fact that, I must say, Brigham Women's is a community of compassionate people is not lost in our patients. Loves the new location in Westwood, first class and an asset to the Westwood station development. I know it's University Station, but I didn't want to change the content here. Recommend the services to all my friends and family. And then the last few, these two in particular, patients, we did not shut the building down during COVID. We were down to about 10% of our normal volume. But this patient said, from personnel greeting at the point of entry throughout the appointment to exit info exchange with individual at sign-out desk, this went very smoothly and was positive during a time when visiting a clinician can be stressful. So that's a reference to COVID, and we take our safe care commitment for our patients very seriously. Having all the medical specialties and testing capabilities needed under one roof. And then this last one, we're residents at Fox Hill Village, where your clinic is respected by everyone we've met. Then finally, in terms of our relationship with the greater Westwood community, with all of you, we pride ourselves on the relationships that we've forged, and we continue to work on with the town administrator. I know Chris is on, town planner, Abby and Nora and Jared, and Chief Deckers, Chief Silva, as well as Mike Perkins in the building department, and we continue to maintain that active communication. We did not reduce our relationship or our involvement with the local chambers of commerce during COVID. We continued that sponsorship and got creative. This is an example of a virtual health class that we offered through the Neponset River Regional Chamber and the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce. And then I just stepped off the board after 6 years in the Neponset River Chamber. And Tom O'Rourke at the chamber had said to me, we really want to maintain that Brigham Health continuity. So Shonda Sumter is our practice administrator at our building in Westwood. She's now succeeded me on the chamber board, which is great. So let's see. So I'm going to turn it over to Joy, and we do have time for Q&A, hopefully at the end.
Great, thank you, Cindy. So as a high-level overview, Westwood Phase 2, I think many of you are aware, it's a new 4-story, 50,000 square foot addition. It'll house primarily clinical space, and as John mentioned earlier, outpatient operating rooms. We're looking at 4 outpatient operating rooms, which will be connected to a new 304-car garage on the 3rd level. And you can see the enclosed bridge here in the graphic below. The addition will also include a number of additional clinical spaces, exam rooms, which will be, when you're in the building, almost be like seamless, where the corridors will be connected, so you won't know exactly what building you're in. So it'll be directly connected to the existing 2-story building. And on the 1st floor will be a nice expansion of major imaging, as John mentioned previously. MRIs, we'll have 2 new MRIs and 2 new CT scanners. One of the new updates since last spring is we're very early in the design and looking at, early in the feasibility of considering sustainable features such as geothermal, which would be a closed loop system, as well as putting solar panels on top of the garage. And as it relates to the geothermal and the aquifer, we're very early. And I want to say a special thank you to Nora for helping us and making some connections, important connections related to the Denham Westwood Water District. And the Board of Health. We're meeting in next Tuesday, we have a meeting on the books just to continue the early conversation surrounding that. In terms of next steps, it's been almost a year, it's hard to believe, but we received our consistency approval last April. And now that we're picking back up, we're going to look at some of the sustainability features of geothermal and PV, as well as continue the construction documents and meeting with the user groups on the inside of the building. We know the important clinicians and important services we want to continue, but really how many exam rooms per each. And one of the items that are really forefront of what we're doing is understanding the hazardous chemicals or hazardous materials that may be included in those procedures or services. So we have an early start in compiling that list as we approach a special permit amendment this summer. And we'll also continue to work on our interim parking plan. The addition right now in part of the garage includes displacing a number of cars for patient parking. So what we would do is we would offset and look for local nearby parking for staff and for the construction workers during that time before the garage is coming online. Next slide, thank you. So our target schedule, and again, this is completely subject to DON and DPH plan review approvals as well as town approvals. But we'd like to start, site work this fall is really our target plan right now. So how would we get there is to continue the design activities through the summer. As I touched on earlier, looking to submit that special permit amendment in June and plan on 2 of the July board meetings. And then we would submit the interim parking plan and then the subsequent building permit for the foundations of the core and shell building. And we would have a number of touch base and continue to work cooperatively with the emergency response, the fire department and police to ensure public safety during this kind of phase when we do the addition and then build the garage. So that's something that's really important that we'll continue those discussions around. We're utilizing the same contractor, Consigli Construction. So again, we'd like to start November, December and have the garage operational fall of 22, and then subsequently the first patient in the addition summer of 23. So with that, I think we were going to go, with questions if there's any.
Sure, I have a few. So the new building is 4-story, 50,000 square feet. Can you just remind me what phase 1, what was the size of phase 1?
Yeah, it was 30,000 square feet, two stories. So 80,000 total.
And I guess what is the driver of the necessity for dozens of 600-foot deep wells? Is it the ORs? What is the specific service that you could only run with geothermal in the area?
Yeah, it's something that we're looking from a sustainability point of view to offset some of the carbon that may be used in the electrical equipment, for example. So it's an optional consideration, and it's really more of a sustainable feature for the building and offsetting carbon.
So without geothermal, I just want to phrase it correctly. So absent geothermal, you could still run outpatient ORs. You could still expand all of your ambulatory services.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so the geothermal is tied solely to the infrastructure of the 80,000 square feet.
It's an option of a sustainable feature that we're looking at to provide some of the heating and cooling of the water and some of the tied to the infrastructure, but it's an optional sustainability feature that we're considering and very early in the stages of considering.
Okay, this is a purely informational night, but I think that I'd really want to know pretty soon why that's being brought up. I have a lot of concerns about that. And I guess if it's not mission critical to the great services and the great relationships you've built, I would really need a better understanding of the pros of that. So you don't have to go there tonight, but it seems to me that we've built a great relationship. I've heard nothing but great things about the services down there. But I really think I just think you really need to really drill down on the pros and cons of that geothermal.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. So I'll leave it at that for now, but I have a lot of concerns, and if it's not mission critical to the program that was laid out to the town in 2017, I'm concerned about what it does from various perspectives. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, John, for that feedback. And one of the things too is the main theme is if we will work with the experts, you know, the engineers in the town, in the Westwood, you know, Denham Westwood Water District. And if we're only going to move forward if everyone's in agreement with that, with feeling good about that, for sure.
And Joy, when you say dozens, like what, can you give a little more of an estimate of how many dozens?
Of
wells?
Wells so I think there's about 50. For wells for us on the site, we're looking at about 50 wells. And this, again, very early stages of preliminary placement of placement on the site.
And you said you're going to be meeting with Dedham Westwood Water District next week?
We do. We have a meeting on the books with Eileen, and we believe it'll be with their engineers, Weston and Sampson, which is a great firm. And we're utilizing our engineers, Haley and Aldridge.
And are you fairly committed to putting the solar panels on at this point?
You know, that's another sustainable feature that we're looking at. It did come up, and it was positively received during our consistency review. So that is something that we would continue to look at it and review with the town.
I think that was all I had. Nancy, do you have any questions?
None of you touched on the urgent care facility, and I'm wondering how that's been going from your perspective. I know I had the need to go there for a COVID test. Fortunately, it was negative, but I found the services to be, as I think was described in one of the slides for the general facility, great at the welcoming and the whole process and the safety and all that. But I'd love to know what from the business perspective on your side, how it's going.
John, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I will say, Nancy, I've heard equally great things. We have a nice relationship with that urgent care. We're all part of the same family. And they've been wonderful around testing, and just, I'm glad to hear you had a good experience. We hear the same thing.
Yeah, it's been a great, you can only imagine during COVID and testing and that staff and around our health system, but it also in Westwood have been terrific. And we've gotten a lot of people using, unfortunately, having to use our urgent care during this time period. So really no change to the urgent care site. We may make a interior change, but we haven't gotten to that yet, so that we can share staff at late hours on things like x-ray. But that urgent care, you may know, was built as we used to have a separate contractor to provide that service, and we switched it over about a year and a half, 2 years ago, to be owned and operated by Mass General Brigham. So it's now all part of the family, and it plans to be there, and has provided a great service.
My other question is, to the extent you can give us perspective, we always talked about there being a two-phase program here, with phase one coming first, smaller size building, and phase two. Are you, as you envision phase two at this juncture, is it consistent with what you thought it would be 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when you were first looking at the whole acquisition and building here in Westwood?
I mean, I think it is. I think that we've gotten more granular, obviously, as we've learned what the community's needs are and what our primary care providers feel we need to expand a bit. When you have a multi-specialty clinic, it gives you a lot of flexibility so that you can really add a little more cardiology. We plan on expanding cardiology to more of a cardiovascular offering, so we can do some cardiac testing on site. We plan to expand our dermatology presence to include a Mohs clinic. We're going to add Mass Eye and Ear in clinic, which is exciting, ENT and audiology. And then for the ambulatory surgery center, we are able to do endoscopy there as well. So that serves a big need. We hear that from our patients a lot. I'm talking to you from Foxborough, our building here, and we hear it all the time. When are you going to add endoscopy? Now we'll have to say, sorry, you're going to have to go to Westwood. But that's, and also major imaging, as John mentioned, MRI, CT. So those were always part of the plan. We knew that we had an additional 50,000 square feet that we could work with. So Joy, John, feel free to add anything. Nancy, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
There's a question in the queue. I don't know if we maybe already answered it. From Kate Wynn, 10 Cedar Hill Drive. What would prevent you from putting solar panels on the roof? What would prevent you from pursuing the geothermal? Westwood residents have shown significant interest in these options. So I think, Joy, you answered that. I don't know if you want to touch on it again. We'll just study it collaboratively and see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is only something, particularly the geothermal, will move forward with as it relates to the aquifer and the water resource protection area, that unless everyone feels really comfortable and good about it, that we would move forward in that way. There's a sensitivity there for sure.
Thank
and
you.
then, yeah, thank you.
No, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no worries. All right.
Michael, do you have any questions? I don't know if.
No, I don't, John. Thank you.
Okay. Nora, do you have anything?
No, just to say Brigham and Women's has been a great addition to the town. Cindy's been a pleasure to work with, and it's a great relationship, and we look forward to continuing it with the phase 2.
That's great. So I think we're not taking any action tonight, right? This was purely informational. And I'm
That's right.
sure we'll see you all again soon, but unless you all have anything, I think that's it for tonight.
Great.
Thank you for coming. This was really informative.
Good luck with your
Thank you very much.
DON process.
Yeah, thanks. Any help you can give would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Pam, I think we're on to you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Constellation energy pricing. Mr. Philbin. Hey, Tom. PM, do you want to go ahead of him and then we can tell
Yes,
him?
sir.
I think I'm on
Oh,
now.
there you
Can
are.
hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. The
Tommy.
town of Westwood uses the municipal energy group through Constellation Energy to supply us power usually on a multi-year basis. They have the contract we have and that we signed about in 1920 is now 5 years ago, now expiring, and it gives us the constant price for energy for an extended period of time. If we go with MMA, we are freed from the problem of bidding, and there are some very clear advantages to the municipal association. The contract is designed very municipal friendly. There is a guarantee that there will be no change in the price. A good example of what could happen would be what happened in Texas, where the people had variable pricing. They may end up with a few cents cheaper, but then of course, if you have a weather event like they had in Texas, all the advantages that can get blown away in a very, very short time. And we had a similar situation a few years ago with gas, where there were supply constraints in February, and the gas bills rather went up by factors of 5 and 6 in just 1 month. So it can really cream you if you haven't got these protections. In the case of this municipal contract, the price you sign on for is fixed for the entire duration of the contract. The drafts that you have in front of you are for a 4-year contract. There's a possibility of a 5th year if we wish, but I would probably recommend the 5th year because it's very little difference. And what we're needing here is the ability of Chris to sign on to this contract. This would be done probably sometime within the next few months, depending on how prices move. They expect prices will go down slightly as we get into the summer and then come back up again into the fall. So we just need the freedom to sign on when we find what we judge to be the optimal time to do it, which will probably within the next few months. So that's what we're up against now. And I think Pat Hearn has reviewed the contract, and he can comment on that as he sees fit. No, I had an opportunity to review the contract, and I had an opportunity to talk to Tom about some of the provisions in the contract. I was concerned about taking buildings off and putting buildings on. He assures me we have the ability to do that. And I was concerned that our
conservation efforts, there's a provision that if we drop below 25% savings from where we're at now, there's some penalties. He assures me where no matter how hard he tries, he probably will not be able to get to that level. Outside of those things, I'm fine with it, and I recommend that you authorize Chris to sign it at a time when Tom tells us the marketplace is most ripe to go forward.
Nancy, I'm good. I don't know if you have any concerns.
Well, I'm a little confused about what we're recommending. Is it to do 4 years, or are you recommending we do the 5 years, Tom?
I would recommend the 5 years myself, although the draft contract that they sent us was 4. I'm not quite sure why they did that. But a minimum of 4, and hopefully if we can extend it to the 5th year, that would be great. That allows for very sound budgeting. In other words, the price is, it's the supply, it's not the distribution, but it's at least half of the electric bill is involved in this, and it gives us a guarantee of a price that's going to stay constant for a 5-year period. I have no doubt in my mind that this electricity price, between all the conservation that's being put in, all the solar and all the other initiatives that are going on, that the price of electric is going to go up. And
So do you want us to give a flexible approval that it can be either or to be determined? I'm not really understanding what would get us to one or the other. Chris, can you help me here? What would you like us to do?
well,
Yes. So what the draft contract that we have in the packet is, as Tom said, it's a 4-year contract.
Right.
I believe, and I certainly agree with Tom, that if the town was able to sign the 5-year deal for the rate that has been identified for the 5-year deal, would be beneficial to the community. So what I would ask the select board is for the flexibility either to sign the 4-year deal at the rate that we've identified, or the 5-year deal, subject to town council's review of the contract, and to make sure that the rate is the rate in the range that we're talking about right now.
John, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that. I mean, really, this is just to give Tom and Chris the discretion.
Right. I just want to make sure that whatever approval we give, we're comfortable if there's that flexibility built in. I'm trying to think of an appropriate way to phrase the motion.
Well, what if you say they can sign a contract for up to 5 years?
That was
That
one
would do
thought I
it.
had. At the rates, or similar to the rates.
This applies to the schools as well, and I've already discussed this fully with Lemma, and she's fine with whatever we decide.
So Pat, something like consistent with the rates is presented to us this evening?
Sure, that'll do. Not a problem.
I think Mr. Walsh might want to weigh in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Michael?
no, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. I'm paying attention.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I just
Sure,
ask
yeah.
Tom one quick question. Tom, could you just share what the annual savings would be by the board signing this contract, or a 5-year contract, authorize me to sign this 5-year contract?
Right. Well, depending on what happens, at the moment, there's about 10.5 cents is the current price if you are outside of a large group like this. And a penny is roughly $50,000 a year.
So by the board signing this similar contract 5 years ago, saves approximately $50,000 a year. So going forward, this would save the community approximately $50,000
Would keep the rates right at where they are currently, and would be $50,000 a year, roughly cheaper than we could probably get on the open market.
Well, it also seems that it protects us from large variabilities, if that might occur, and doesn't always mean we're on the positive side of having a financial benefit, but it does mean we can plan and have predictability, and over the course of 5 years, we should be financially better for it.
Yes, that's true.
Very much so.
Okay. All right, I move we authorize the town administrator, Christopher Coleman, to sign up to a 5-year contract renewal with Constellation New Energy, Inc. at the similar to the rates presented to us this evening for an electricity supply agreement in parens fixed cost solutions through, this is where I'm running into problems, Pat. I'm not going to put a date.
No.
I'm not going to put a date. So up to 5 years, because we don't know when it's going to be signed.
And if you read the contract, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, it when it starts slides based on meter readings.
Well,
So
it would
it's-
actually start on January 1st of 2022. The contract, we have an existing contract in place through December, but what we would never want to do is wait until December to sign this contract because the
Yeah,
price would be likely much higher than it would be if we
I'm just going to say to sign up to a 5-year renewal.
right.
As
leaves it-
yeah, leaving the flexibility.
Leaving the discretion to Chris and Tom as to when to sign it.
I've now sufficiently confused Tish.
I think it's been a group effort.
Yeah, I think we're all in, but Tish, I'm not going to put a December 11th, 2025 in the motion like I have in what's in front of me, because that wouldn't work. And it ends with as administered through the Mass Municipal Association.
Yes.
So what we are accomplishing is up to 5 years, renewal of the current contract at terms consistent with those presented to us this evening.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's my
Good.
motion, John.
Okay,
Michael,
I'll
you second? Okay,
I
great.
will second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Tom, thank you for all of your efforts.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, I'll turn it over to Pam now.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen just to give you a budget update. Okay, can you see that? Great, okay. So just to update the board on where we are with the budget, we have been finalizing the supplements or changes to the current year budget, FY21, for Articles 1 and 2, and really just a few minor things to go through. In Article 1, we do need to supplement our street lighting budget for $20,000. We had an unusual occurrence this year. When the ICC building came down, there was a piece of equipment on that building that handled the streetlights for Washington Street, and we needed to move those. Todd Corchin was able to provide to get those moved. That cost about $20,000. We needed to do that, obviously, to make sure that we still had the streetlights working on Washington Street. We are showing that funding source, the $20,000 that we voted at our last town meeting for the town grant for the fire vehicle. So we did talk about this at your last meeting. We do have the fire multi-purpose vehicle and an additional article later for the May 2021 town meeting. We had voted $20,000 last year as a match if we got a grant. So we're going to close that out by showing that as the transfer over to fund this street lighting item. So that's the only item that we need as a transfer in Article 1. Next, in Article 2, we do need this year to appropriate some funds for snow and ice, $150,000. You'll recall that last year we didn't. We were able to live within the original snow and ice budget. And we were this year going along fine until February came. And then we did have some significant storms. So we would supplement that budget for $150,000 and we would utilize free cash to fund that. And then for ambulance services, appropriate an additional $67,500. That is kind of an annual adjustment. We budget kind of a base amount for ambulance supplies and what they need within the ambulance and for operating that. And then we supplement it for what is actually needed. So the chief has requested the $67,500 and we would utilize ambulance receipts to fund that. And again, that's a standard article that we do each year. But other than that, those are the two articles. Everything else is on track in FY21. I will point out what you don't see here are any supplements needed for any COVID-related budget impacts. We've talked previously that certainly the municipal and school department have had additional cost and things they've needed to do to make sure we can keep services going COVID, particularly the schools with their effort to do the hybrid remote learning. But we have had sufficient funding from state and federal revenue sources to provide for that. So any costs that our fire department, our school department, our building maintenance department have incurred during this year, we will be able to use both CARES and FEMA funding to cover that. So we do not need to use any town funds to provide for any of that. So very minor items for Articles 1 and 2. And then just looking in the FY22 budget, in February 1st, the Select Board put out a balanced budget for FY22. We just have a few minor changes to that budget now as we move along. First, the Blue Hills Regional School Budget Assessment. So each year, the Blue Hills School provides us with a projection of what the assessment might be, and we include that in the February 1 budget. Now we have their more updated number. Our updated assessment for FY22 is just over $129,000. That's actually a decrease of about $2,600 or 2% compared to our current year assessment. And this item is actually now about $10,000 less than what I was carrying in the original FY22 budget. So we will bring that down. And with the Blue Hills, a reminder, we're about the same number of students as we've been in recent years. We have about 6 Westwood students attending the Blue Hills Regional School. We're a very, very small percent of their overall population, which is about, I think, 890 students. So that budget we can bring down. One other assessment similar where we always get an initial amount to use in our budget and then we update that at this time of year is the sewer department, the MWRA assessment. So we've received an updated number that our FY22 assessment would be $3.27 million. That's an increase of $150,000 or 4.8% over our current year assessment. Again, that assessment is actually lower than what I had in the original budget. It's about $112,000 lower than what was in the budget we put out on February 1st. So we will reduce that budget in the sewer, that line item in the sewer budget. And as the sewer is an enterprise fund, self-supporting, we also will reduce the sewer revenue. So there's no overall budget change, but we will bring down both the revenue and expense for that line item. Next, looking at the health insurance budget, that is one budget that we, again, include an estimate early, and then we update it when we get our actual information. We did receive our final rates from the GIC last week. That's the Group Insurance Commission. That's the town purchases our health insurance through the state plan. The average rate increase for FY22 is 5.2%. There is a range within the individual plans. The active employee range is from 3.2% increase to a 12% increase. We offer, I believe, 6 various plans that people can partake in. Our most subscribed plan is a 4.8% increase, and the retiree plan's a 2.3% increase. So when we take these actual rate changes that we know about and run that into our current spreadsheets of who is on what plan, we do not need to adjust that FY22 health insurance budget. Our original projection was a 5% increase to that budget, and that is fine to accommodate these various rate increases. And I will just point out, we've really not had any change in the health insurance budget at this point in the year for the last several budgets. It used to be that fluctuated much more wildly. But now when we get an update from the GIC in the January timeframe to put in that initial budget, the number they give us is very close to what their final rates are. So this is much more static and is really not a budget we should be looking towards in the future that a wild change, either up or down from that initial assessment. And then finally, one other small item, the Westwood school budget. When the school committee voted their final request at one of their most recent meetings, the FY22 budget request is just over $50 million, an increase of 3.44% over the current budget. That is a slight increase, $9,200 increase over, again, the original budget that we had in that February 1st document. The school committee did want to start to include funding for a director of security position. So they have put into the FY22 budget a part-time and half-year funding for the director of security position. They're offsetting some of the cost of that with other changes in their budget. Overall, the increase, again, about $9,200. And really that school budget request is offset by this $10,000 decrease in the Blue Hill School assessment. So our overall budget is still balanced, and really that spending within our school categories is just changing slightly. So really, any questions on that? That really are the only changes that we've had to your original budget that you put out again early last month.
Pam, I think if I remembered hearing correctly, the part-time position with the schools, they're in part funding it within what they already asked for because they could reduce, I think, travel and the travel expenses. So this isn't the cost of the part-time person, it's just a portion of the cost. Is that
It's just a
right?
portion of the cost, that's correct. And they will need to build that into budgets in FY23 forward. They don't feel they need to have this position start right at the beginning of the school year. So they would not bring that on and fill it until later in the school year. They did look to offset some of that cost with reductions in others. As you mentioned, travel budgets, conference costs, things that still with COVID would be a little bit less. But it was a position they felt was important. They did have that security study done. And they would like to have someone kind of assigned to helping them continue to implement findings and recommendations from that study.
Now, they're talking about that person coming on as an employee, or are they talking about it being a contract situation?
I don't know if they finalized that.
Yeah. I'd be curious to learn more about that, but I guess that's really in their purview, not ours.
Mhm.
Again, so with those changes, that would really be the only issues that have changed in the budget. We're ready to go forward and have the select board finalize those Article 1 and 2, approve the operating budget to go forward, and then the other capital budgets and articles. We would then submit those updates and changes to the Finance and Warrant Commission. So the Finance and Warrant Commission does meet next Tuesday, the 16th. Their subcommittees will give their reports back as they've been reviewing the school and municipal budgets. They've had some terrific meetings with our various departments, and they're very much in support of the budget that the select board have put forward. And then their final public hearing on the budgets at the end of the month, March 29th, and that's when they would go through one more presentation on all of the budget articles and vote their recommendation on those articles for town meeting. And very quickly after that, we prepare that book that does go out to town meeting and is mailed to every home. So we do have just a super quick walkthrough of the budget, but it's a very well-balanced, comprehensive budget for FY22. Takes care of the operating budget with very reasonable, sustainable increases. Funds capital, looks to fund our stabilization and our OPEB accounts. It has a few borrowing accounts for the school article and small equipment. So this slide shows the updated overall operating budget, which would be in Article 3 for town meeting, a 3.1% increase for all of the operating categories. The largest increase, $1.6 million of the total 3, is in our school budget area. The 3.4% increase, with the school budget again being just over $50 million, so the largest piece of our spending. The second largest piece, $933,000, or 5% increase in our fixed cost benefit area. Again, that includes our pension and health insurance costs. So a very stable operating budget. And then capital budget, as you've done the last couple of years, really make sure we're maintaining our capital. We've been able to build our base capital for school and municipal up to $2.3 million a year, which is really pretty close to our financial policy target. So as shown in the green, the 22 budget would again fund that, $2.3 million for school and municipal. And then that one additional extra capital article. We've done this for several years where we've tried to do some capital beyond the base. What's proposed for FY22, shown in the green, just over $1 million. And that would be $750,000 to replace the turf field at the high school, the multipurpose field in the back, and then about $330,000 for repairs to the pool. And this article would be funded with our meal and hotel tax revenue.
What would that leave us with the hotel and meals tax account?
Through December 2020, we had about $2 million in that account. So it would leave us with $1 million plus whatever we take in January through June. We'll get our next allotment at the end of March. And as we saw at the last quarterly allotment from the state, that had continued to pick up again, the meal and hotel tax.
That's a perfect, these are perfect ways to fund capital projects and have the account replenish and be available again next year.
Be available next year. Yep. And these projects, both that field and the pool, are used by residents of all ages in town, and both are used so frequently. And it's important that we continue to maintain them so that everyone can partake. I mean, that pool is used not only by the high school and the swim teams, but the seniors have a very active water aerobics program. The youngsters in town, everybody learns how to swim up at that pool. It's very busy, as well as that practice field in the back. Again, not just the high school athletes, but a lot of the youth programs utilize that. And then these are just the slides you've seen before on the particular items within the municipal capital, $1.3 million total, a very standard list of ongoing rotation for important equipment for our police and fire departments. As was pointed out at the select board's last meeting, it is the last year of a payment that we've been making for 5 years for some fire engines, $226,000 a year. This will be our final payment for 2 of our major engine purchases that we did a couple of years ago. And then the school list, just over $1 million for school capital. And again, this is their same allocation as in the current year and really helps them make sure they're keeping their buildings and equipment up to date. One article, the sewer capital borrowing article, $500,000 to make sure we're inspecting and repairing our sewer system, checking for leaks and making sure we're repairing those. And this is funded through the MWRA. They have a program funded by the state where they work with communities and we can participate. They want communities to be working on the system and making sure that they're maintaining it. This $500,000 will be totally through the MWRA. The town will not borrow the money. 75% is given as a grant and 25% as a no interest loan with the MWRA. And we do this every 5 years or so with the MWRA program. Articles 7 and 8, the additional capital in 7 is capital funded by a particular revenue. Usually this is the ambulance. So we have 3 ambulance items here, and then 1 sewer item, the stormwater compliance that we fund out of the sewer each year, $70,000, and we use sewer retained earnings to fund that. The other items, 2 standard small things that are funded with ambulance receipts, and then $387,000 for a new ambulance. Those do need to be replaced every few years, given the volume of activity that they have. And we will use existing ambulance revenues to pay for that. And then finally, Article 8, as we looked at, $1,060,000 to fund the turf field and the pool, and we would use the meal and hotel tax revenue for that. Article 9 is just that cleanup, a housekeeping article with our debt authorization for the police station. We're just closing out and cleaning up credit authorization for that. Article 11, appropriating $125,000 into our stabilization or reserve account. That would bring the balance up to about $3.7 million, right on target with where that needs to be by our financial policies. And Article 12, our annual appropriation into our OPEB liability trust account. As shown in green, the appropriation would be $1.49 million. Right on track and consistent with the plan, which is just to keep steady with our appropriations, increase them by $25,000 each year. You can see that now that would be our 7th year of a really healthy and appropriate funding into the OPEB liability. That has allowed that liability and to go way down from when we first started this way back in 2011. This is really significant progress by the town. This will be very, very well received when we go out for our credit rating in advance of some debt that we'll be doing this spring. And then finally, the one additional capital article borrowing for 2 pieces of equipment, $250,000 for a DPW roadside sweeper and $400,000 for the fire multi-purpose vehicle. So in total, this would be $650,000. We would fund this as a borrowing, include these when we go out to borrow for other items, but we would only do a short-term repayment for these, less than a 5-year repayment for these equipment. They just are at these price points a bit larger than what we typically fit into our cash pay-as-you-go capital. And I believe that's it. That would be all of the financial articles. And again, very minor changes from the original budget that you put forth last month. That's been out there being reviewed by the Finance and Warrant Commission. Very well-balanced budget for FY22. I think really important to point out that we did not have to use any of our reserve accounts to fund this budget. There are no one-time revenues built into this. We were helped by the state aid being level funded for FY22. So it's a very good budget to make sure that we're maintaining quality services for the school and municipal departments.
Thank you, Pam. So are we voting the budget tonight then?
If you're ready to, that would be helpful. Then we package this up to make sure we get that out ahead of the FinCom's final warrant hearing at the end of the month.
I mean, I think we're ready, Nancy. Michael, I don't know.
Yeah, can we do it as one motion for all the financial articles?
Correct.
You don't need it. Pat, you don't see any need for individual, do you?
No.
I'm ready to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chris had something.
Just to answer Ms. Hyde's question, that position for the schools, that part-time position is a non-benefited employee position.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Chris. So I move that we approve all the financial articles as presented by our Assistant Town Administrator, Finance Director, Pamela Dukeman, this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
Walsh?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much.
Pam, that's great.
Very much.
Pam, are you on the next one? Release of fourth quarter capital? You're on mute. You're on mute, Pam.
I'm trying to get there. Okay, sorry. Yes, if you could release the fourth quarter capital, it's just 2 items totaling $75,000. As the board is aware, most of the capital is released in the first quarter as projects are typically done in the summer months or equipment is ordered early. There's 2 items for the IS department and user technology for $37,500 and $37,500 for Waha building maintenance and improvement. So $75,000. And I'll just point out that there's 2 items that we're not asking you to release at all this year. One was that $20,000, the swap body, the multi-vehicle fire, multi-purpose vehicle for the fire, the $20,000. We showed that in Article 1. And then the town and school financial software. $237,000. You'll recall that we received funding over a 2-year period. At some point, we need to replace our overall financial software. We had thought we could move forward with that this year, but with the COVID impact, that we were certainly did not have the time or the schools to kind of look at new software and go out and make that change. So we will hold on that until FY22.
Oh, so it can wait and get released next year.
We'd release that next year. But when we choose new software, we're going to go out and look at other communities and see what we need and have companies in. And we were just not in a position to be able to do that municipal or schools this year.
Okay. I move that we approve the release of fourth quarter FY21 capital totaling $75,000 to the 2 departments previously mentioned, contingent upon all procurement procedures and checklists being fulfilled.
I will second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want to update on the West Suburban Veterans District?
Sorry, yes, thank you. So so first and foremost, I certainly want to acknowledge the work of Mary Ann Cardy, who's been the administrative person for our veterans. Last week, she informed me and she okayed me to share this with the board, her plans to retire. So she's retiring in a month, around I believe around early April 2nd, I believe. And with that, looked at different options for the board. This is one option to consider for the community, which is to see if the Commonwealth will allow the West Suburban Veterans District, which is comprised of Wellesley, Needham, Wayland, and Weston, to expand to include Westwood. Previously, when I worked for the town of Needham, I was actually one of the members who served on the board of the West Suburban Veterans District. And the benefit of this district is, and just to be clear, this is not a cost-saving measure. This is an effort to expand our outreach. I think we've done a really good job with the resources that we have. I think Mary Ann, I think Michelle have been doing a fabulous job. The West Suburban Veterans District has both a full-time and a part-time director. They can really get out there and look at other programs that are working in these communities as well as what may work in Westwood. So what I'm looking for the board to do is to authorize me to ask the district to submit a letter of request to the Commonwealth to expand their district to include Westwood.
No, I think this is great, Chris. I mean, you've presented this to us for a while and you've been working this, and I think it's great. So thank you for doing that. I don't have any, I think it's a positive. I think it's a growth opportunity for Westwood's outreach. So I think it's great. Nancy, Michael, I don't know if you had anything.
Well, we've long been
No,
talking about regionalization, so I think this
Right.
is.
Opportunity, so.
I certainly want to again just emphasize the work that Mary Ann Cardy has done and that she'll continue to do until that day comes when she does retire. And I just think this is an opportunity. I mean, if we can just build off of what Mary Ann and Michelle have been doing, I think that will be great. And I hope that the district will be able to do that for us.
I just, we all feel very strongly about providing veterans with important services and doing it in a personalized way. So as long as we can maintain the accessibility of services for our veterans, how we do it, if we can regionalize, will be great, but we can't compromise. We need to make sure they get the services they need and they deserve.
So we need a vote on that, right? Correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, I move that the select board authorize the town administrator, Christopher Coleman, to submit a letter to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Secretary of Veterans Services to consider a request for Westwood to join the West Suburban Veterans Service District.
Michael?
I'll
your second?
second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Chris, for all your work on that. I think it's going to be a great benefit to Westwood.
Thank you.
And Tish, we're skipping regular meeting minutes, correct?
Are we going to do the annual town meeting, John?
We can do the articles.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You skipped.
Oh, I'm sorry. I always miss one. Okay, I'm sorry. Who's going to lead us on this? Chris, is that you?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just open it up, and we have our subject matter experts here. We have both Nora and John here. Just as a brief summary, we have current articles, select board 4 through 9 are what is being presented to the board for consideration for withdrawal. I will ask Nora just to talk a little bit about the articles that's being proposed, and then Chief Deckers and I can talk about the article regarding to the care and maintenance of private fire hydrants.
Yeah, so 2 articles that I had requested previously were for the Obed Baker House. One was for just selling the property to the selected bidder, and the other was for potential rezoning. We're still working with the bidder, Todd Sullivan, on his project, and he has not gotten to the point where he's ready to come back to the board for review of that proposal to see if he is the selected bidder. He's the only one bidding so far, but there's still a process that needs to be done. And there was some delay. We received the bids last February, at the end of February, just as we were heading long into this difficult year, and he was unable to get everything together in time. So we've been working together pretty closely over the last month or so, but he's just still not quite ready. So we're asking you to withdraw those articles, and we'll continue working on this, and he'll come back when he's ready. He'll go through the process. If the select board is interested in allowing him to go forward with his proposal, then he'll take the time to go to the planning board and the Conservation Commission before coming back for a future town meeting. So those 2 Obed Baker articles, I'm asking you to withdraw at this time.
Okay.
And then I had also asked to reserve 3 placeholders for various economic development projects that may or may not go forward. None of them are prepared to go forward yet. So again, those 3 articles are no longer needed for this town meeting.
Okay. Okay, John, what are you looking to withdraw?
So, Chief, you're on mute, by the way. So this would be Select Board Article 9. This is the bylaw amendment to request care and maintenance of private fire hydrants.
Oh, okay.
The chief has been working really hard with the Dedham Westwood Water District, along with other members of his department. And Chief, if you just want to, I think where we are right now is more on the lines of, I still think there's more reconciliation to do, but I'll let Chief Deckers discuss that in greater detail.
So what we were hoping was to have a proactive approach to adopting this language. As we came across these private hydrants, there just seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions right now, specifically on how many are actually in town, who's going to be impacted, what's going to be the end result. And in an effort to try to properly position this article and get the support of the community, I think we just need to do a little bit more due diligence, as Chris pointed out. Literally formulate that list, confirm that the 58 hydrants that we currently have on it are definitely private hydrants. And basically, a private hydrant is any hydrant that's on a piece of property that we don't have a town easement, so we can't maintain it, becomes a private. So Dedham Westwood Water can't touch it, even though and maintain it, and it's the responsibility of the property owner. So we want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row when we present this. I had figured trying to be proactive because we didn't want to have hydrants that were not maintained. There just seems to be a lot more questions than I had anticipated, and I want to make sure that we get all the right facts out there. So we're going to continue to develop the list. We'll hold this and present it in the next town meeting, unless I can get the state to reverse their position, because it used to be in the Massachusetts Fire Code, but they took it out two revisions ago, and I've been talking to their engineer, and they're talking about bringing it back in because there was a lot of confusion around this. So I'm hoping we get that in, and maybe we'll get that before we have to bring it back to the town to bring it in as a bylaw.
Great, thank you. Nancy and Michael, do you have any questions?
No, it makes sense to
I do not.
I think that the details that go into these things, Chief, it's better to wait and spend the time to do that research than to get something out there too soon.
I agree.
So the other article, John, I see wasn't discussed, was to remove budget Article 10, establishing a special purpose fund for the affordable housing. Are we also being asked to remove that, Chris?
Not at this time.
No.
That matter is still being discussed with the planning board. I believe their meeting is going to be in the middle of March, and I would just ask the select board if we would just wait. That is a financial article. If we just wait to our next meeting on March 29th before we discuss that.
Is that consistent with what you know, Pat?
It's 4 members indicated a willingness to transfer the money directly, but they did not vote it.
I believe they're going to be voting. If I'm not mistaken, Abby's online right now. I believe they're going to be, this is on their agenda for, is it March 11th?
Next week, the hearing was continued to next week on March 16th. So
Right.
If they're ready, they'll vote next week on the 16th.
So I'm fine holding, Nancy, if that works.
Yeah, I think it could go now, but whatever. I'll move that we remove select board articles 4 and 5 pertaining to the Obed Baker House, 6, 7, and 8 that were placeholders for community and economic development, and Article 9 for the not adopting the maintenance of private hydrants. So my motion is to remove all those articles.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
okay, and I vote aye as well. Thank you all for your work on that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So one other thing, we have two more things regarding the warrant list. Miscellaneous Article 1, as what was discussed when Pam provided her presentation, the borrowing article that includes the DPW vehicle and the multi-purpose vehicle for the fire department. We're adding that to, I think it's budget 14, I believe. I think it's budget 14, and we're going to be using miscellaneous article number 1 to do that. So we're not increasing the number of articles.
Hadn't we already done that?
I didn't think we did that yet. I don't believe the board voted that. I think we discussed that. I just don't know if the board voted that.
You're better off taking an affirmative vote.
And it would be for budget article 14, I believe, is the next sequence.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, what's the motion then? That we use one of the miscellaneous articles as budget article 14?
Yes.
Miscellaneous Article 1 would be now budget 14.
Okay, I move that we use miscellaneous article number 1 as budget article 14.
I'll second.
Okay, I will call the roll. Mrs. Hyde,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay, and then what's the second one, Chris?
Second one is regarding the planning board articles. The planning board has asked to use 2 miscellaneous articles. They're going to be breaking out 2 matters. One, and Abby, if I'm incorrect, please correct me. I believe they're going to be breaking out for planning article 4 will now be zoning amendment for medical uses prohibiting hospitals, and planning board 5 will now be related to medical uses creating substance abuse rehabilitation facility overlay district. So the new read will have us having planning board article 3 for medical centers or clinics and offices of healthcare professionals. Planning board article 4 will be for medical uses, related medical uses prohibiting hospitals. Planning board article 5 will be related to medical uses creating substance rehabilitation facility overlay district. And planning board 6 will be the housekeeping article. Did I capture that correctly, Abby?
Yes, that's right.
You can thank Tish for that.
And there is some strategy behind breaking them out into 3 separate articles. If one of them gets found to be not constitutional by the AG, the other 2 can move forward accordingly.
That makes good sense.
Yeah, that's part of the strategy.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, by doing this, if the board approves, we would be asking to use miscellaneous articles 2 and 3 for these 2 additional articles for planning, for the breakout articles for planning.
And you still have 1, don't you?
We still have 2, Mr.
2.
Yes.
Okay, I move that we use 2 of the available miscellaneous articles as planning board article 4 and planning board article 5 as previously described by the town administrator, so that the existing planning board article continues to cover zoning amendments related to medical uses, medical centers or clinics and offices of healthcare professionals. The miscellaneous article, one of the 2 becomes planning board article 4, zoning amendment related to medical uses prohibiting hospitals. And the second miscellaneous article becomes planning board article 5, zoning amendment related to medical uses creating substance rehabilitation facility overlay district.
Okay, Michael, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mrs. Hyde,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay, Chris, is that get us up to date?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so annual town meeting article discussion is completed then. I think I am now caught up. The regular meeting minutes, Tish, we're not doing any tonight, correct? Okay. Is there any other business that may come before the board? I just want to let everybody know that we will be adjourning shortly, and at 7 p.m. this evening, we will be attending the select board will be attending the Finance and Warrant Commission public hearing that will be held tonight at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and tomorrow, March 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. if needed. And additionally, our next meeting will be held on March 29th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via Zoom. Are there any inquiries from the public or press? I will check the chat. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Walsh?
Second.
Okay, I will call the roll. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye as well. That concludes our meeting. We will be in attendance at 7 p.m. at the Finance Commission hearing.
See you soon.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.